Welcome to the Press Box. I'm Ryan Thorburn, joined by Steve Mims. We're getting ready for Oregon's Pac-12 opener at Arizona State. Steve, the Ducks are 3-0, stormed through non-conference play, back in the rankings at number 24. You have to be pretty impressed with the start for Willie Taggart at Oregon.
Yeah, it's been a good start for him. You know, almost about 365 days ago, they were in the polls, and then they lost to Nebraska. It all free-felled, and then obviously the coaching changed. But Willie's done a nice job. He's gotten it back going. Like you mentioned, 3-0. We've heard a lot this week, though, that this is a different kind of athlete at ASU. It's obviously not Southern Utah. Even Nebraska and Wyoming, there wasn't quite the speed on the sides, and quarterbacks quite as mobile as ASU's got. So I think Oregon State feels the tempos are definitely going to go up a little bit for their defense this week.
Arizona State ravaged Oregon's defense the last 2 years, but Oregon won shootouts, and it appears to me that Oregon's defense is dramatically improved where Arizona State's really isn't. So when you look at this matchup, I mean, Oregon scored 42 points in the first half of all three games. I guess if you want to tweak it, they're kind of a little bit sluggish in the last two second halves, but I see Oregon scoring in the 50s in this game.
Yeah, we've seen Phil Bennett's the new defensive coordinator at ASU. They brought in the guy from Baylor. Oregon brought in the guy from Colorado, and Jim Leavitt certainly made the better impact early on. But this looks to me like one of the games almost like the last couple of years, where it's just sort of if Oregon's at 42 at halftime, they're not going to be able to come out and just kind of survive to win in the second half. I think ASU will be keeping up with them a little bit more, and like I say, if this thing gets down to 14 in the second half, I think ASU will keep scoring, and it's not going to be kind of a chance for Oregon to just kind of run the clock out almost.
Royce Freeman is kind of sneaking into the Heisman Trophy talk and probably will remain there as long as Oregon keeps winning. It's something we kind of thought might happen last year. He was kind of the face of the team post-Mariota if they had a run there. Obviously, he got hurt. The season went downhill after Nebraska. But Royce's decision to come back looking pretty good right now if things continue the way they're going.
Yeah, and he looks so much, he just looks healthier. He looks like he did those first 2 years. He looks more physical. He's given out as much punishment as he's taken. Last year it certainly let you realize how hurt he was last year to, underperform as he did. But this certainly looks like the guy who had, 1,800 yards as a freshman, 1,400. This looks like a guy who's getting close to those paces again.
I had a good feeling that Wyoming would have a tough time stopping Royce Freeman. Everybody does. But I was impressed with Justin Herbert on the road. That first drive, 3rd and 10 converts, 3rd and 11 converts to Charles Nilsson. Then Charles goes out, and he's still picking them apart with Dylan Mitchell and Taj Griffin. Really, Justin seems to be in complete control of this offense and even running the ball a little bit now. Yeah,
and it's amazing with the receivers. We talked about with Darren Carrington out loud. There's only one experienced guy, it's Charles Nelson. Then Nelson gets hurt. But suddenly you look on the outside and you feel like, Johnny Johnson's done a nice job. Schooler, you got Fadele out there. And then on the inside with that Nelson, you moved Taj Griffin in there. You've got Darian McNeil who can play in there a little bit too. So, Dylan Mitchell on the outside. So it feels like even though there's nobody that we've heard about or seen much from coming in this year, suddenly you almost feel like there is some depth back at wide receiver.
Then defensively, impressive to get 4 picks against Nebraska, kind of hold them off in the second half. They made Josh Allen, the NFL media darling. You almost feel sorry for the guy after that game. I mean, they were really hitting him hard. He had a really regrettable night, and Jim Leavitt's getting the job done with a lot of the same players and some freshmen.
Yeah, and we're seeing more pressure on the quarterback. I'm going to write about that today. We've seen, especially from the edges with Moy and Holland, some guys there. Now Pagano's back in there a little bit. They're getting Malik Young, some of these, the experienced guys who were having to play their way into shape. So I think Oregon's feels pretty good about that line and the fact that they're actually adding some guys. They haven't had some attrition like we saw last year where it felt like every week you were losing somebody. The freshman Austin Fellow didn't play last week. He's expected to be back this week. So they could be almost at 100% on the line this week.
Yeah, Scott Pagano, Malik Young are helping out up there. When you look at Arizona State's offense, I've had to catch bits and pieces of their games. San Diego State, they lost. Texas Tech lost a shootout. But Manny Wilkins is a capable dual-threat quarterback. I think if they can get pressure on him, make him a run-only guy, they're going to be 4-0.
Yeah, they've got some guys on the outside now, Kyle Williams, Akil Harry. They've got some guys there. Kalen Balaj, feel like he's been around this league forever, a speed and a power guy. But you're right. I think Wilkins he's just a guy who hasn't really proven himself in the Pac-12 yet. And, we've seen where, like you say, with Tanner Lee at Josh Allen, some guys at Oregon's been able to really control some quarterbacks who maybe had more experience I don't know that we'll see Wilkins be able to come out and be a guy who's going to be able to kind of keep up with Oregon on the scoreboard, but he's also a guy who's more mobile than Oregon's seen, so he might cause a few more problems in Oregon's scene.
Well, unless there's some Pac-12 after dark fishiness this week or next week against Cal, I think Oregon's going to be 5-0 entering the Washington State game. That would be more wins in September than they had all of last season, which would be pretty incredible. So we'll find out what happens on Saturday and talk to you from Tempe. Thanks for tuning in.